Hi, I'm Rosie Snow, and I'm the Director of Christian Discipleship at Wesley Memorial United Methodist Church. This week's message talks about media and attention, but I want to say right out that this is not going to be some critique or lambasting of the media. This is just about where our attention is going right now. So, you may have noticed there's been a lot of media attention for armed protests that have been gathering at state capitals around the country, whether these are just a couple people or more, lots and lots of attention. And plenty of that attention has been negative, given that the science and what we're seeing unfold across the globe is showing us that we need to flatten the curve to save lives. But when so much attention is given to a set of policy desires by a group of people, it's still attention, and it forces that topic and that policy desire to be talked about throughout the media. And that includes being talked about by people who are serious. So when that happens, it creates this sense of legitimacy around that desired outcome and makes it more likely that it will be enacted to some degree somewhere. So that's a phenomenon of what happens when you give something a lot of attention. Are these protests newsworthy? Yeah, sure. But there's plenty else that's going on that's very newsworthy that is not getting attention. So I'll mention a few of those. We are not hearing about the fact that there have been over 150 strikes by essential workers and factory workers who are demanding fair pay for the increased risk, demanding safer conditions, or even demanding that the factories where they work start making equipment and supplies that are going to save lives and help us get through this faster. The labor reporting website Payday Report has a map showing as many of these strikes as they can find. This is huge. But have any of us heard about this? Another thing not being reported on widely is that the largest coordinated rent strikes in almost a century have been happening the past couple months, on April 1st and then May 1st, and it will continue the 1st of every month. In cities across the country, thousands of renters impacted by COVID are pledging not to pay rent, unfurling banners from bridges and apartments, stating the immorality of continuing or just delaying rent when thousands and thousands of people are sick and tens of millions of people have lost their job. We aren't hearing about that. We aren't hearing about the mutual aid networks of neighbors providing groceries and life-saving aid to each other for free out of love. We aren't hearing about the community bailouts to deliver prisoners from life-threatening conditions at prisons and detention centers, the most dangerous places to be right now. We aren't hearing about the groundswell of young working class, diverse candidates running in Democratic primaries across the country. There is a difference between the armed protests and all these other phenomena that I've been mentioning, aside from the fact that only the armed protests are getting huge coverage. There is a spiritual difference. The strikes, the mutual aid, the bailouts, the scrappy campaigns, they are about love of neighbor. They are about leaving behind the cruelty of our current systems so clearly failing us right now. These activists are cracking open a tightly shut door that leads to a world that actually would be resilient against the challenge that we're going through. A world whose foundation is the courage, the love, and passion that is at work right now, that we're not even seeing. As Christians, we are called to take responsibility for what we train our attention to. Not just to amplify what needs to be amplified, but for our own spiritual health. God is present in these upswellings of neighborly love. As people who seek to abide in God, let us draw close to where God is active right now. Let us participate in it. And not only where the broad media ecosystem is directing our attention. It's a practice. For me, this practice has emerged over time. And at the moment, I am most connected to the work at the community garden. I am making calls for a friend's campaign for state assembly in New York City that I really believe in. I'm giving to mutual aid networks as I can, particularly the local one here in Charlottesville. And I'm trying to amplify the good that I see. These simple practices are grounding, spiritually nourishing, and they add to what I long to see grow. You know, the early Christians didn't get much coverage from the Roman Empire. There's not much recorded in that historical record. And yet, with the Holy Spirit, the gospel of God's love triumphing over cruelty, over violence, and over death took off. Let us live in that Holy Spirit right now, because it is active in the world. Let us draw close to its activity. Let us participate and believe in its power so that we can watch it transform us